Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me this evening in the locker room for the 15th episode in the Conversation with Alan series. I'm Alan Locher. I created Conversations with Alan to have open and honest discussions about the rise of hate and the rise of anti Semitism with high hopes that it leads to conversations that make us all think about our place in history and what we can do to change our country's course to stop hate in all its forms. Tonight, Jane Clementi joins me to share memories of her son, Tyler, to discuss National Bullying Prevention Month and tell us about the Tyler Clementi Foundation's upcoming Upstander Legacy Gala on Thursday, October 20th. Jane co-founded the foundation to make sure that society learns the consequences of discrimination and bullying, as she learned all too personally through the loss of her son, Tyler. At the young age of 18, he became the target of cyberbullying and ended his too short life in 2010. The mission of the foundation is to end all online and offline bullying in schools, workplaces, and faith communities through educational research, legislative advocacy, and awareness programming. Jane's desire is to change hearts and minds because everyone should be allowed to live and thrive in an environment that is free of harassment, intimidation, and humiliation. Her hope is to ignite a culture shift where all people will experience kindness, respect, and consideration. She has spoken before the U.S. Congressional Help Committee, at the National Cathedral, the Federal Reserve Bank, the NYC Prosecutor's Office, today at Mercer College, as well as numerous other conferences. It is truly my pleasure to welcome to the locker room Jane Clementi. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I really appreciate it. And really, to share the great work you're doing at the foundation. I can tell you personally, as a gay man who grew up and now lives back in his home state of New Jersey, Tyler's story definitely hit me incredibly hard. And I know, not just me, but the world was affected by the bullying he received and had to endure and the tragic loss your family suffered. So thank you for, just sharing his story and keeping him alive really through the work that you do.
Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting us to share the work that's being done in his name. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I appreciate that. I'm curious, if you think back, what was your life? How would you describe your life before September 22nd of that year?
It's hard to even get past that big chasm in my life, but I think we were a very ordinary family, a very private family. I don't think we were very unusual from our neighbors and the other folks that our kids went to school with. And it was certainly very blissful. I often think about how there were some bumps in the road. Every family, everyone has it, but there was nothing that really stands out as being unique or horrific. Everything felt like it was in our control, that we were in control of ourselves, and then all of a sudden we were not in control any longer.
I bet. Tell us about Tyler.
So he was my third child, my third son. He was very energetic in that he liked to explore. He liked to create objects. He was very creative. He also liked to put things together and from when he was very little to, Legos and blocks, to becoming very helpful when he could put together all the IKEA furniture that we bought for the basement. Very, very good. There were lots of positives to being able to put things together. He certainly was gifted musically. He had a passion for music. His instrument of choice, so to speak, it was his violin. He did dabble with the piano a little bit and anything else in the house that made noise. He loved to make noise, I think. Not necessarily shouting or anything, but just, playing the recorder, the harp, the toys when he was little. He liked to make a sound and had a presence. And he, as I said, he was a gifted violinist. And I guess that's a prideful mom, maybe speaking, but he did, when he went to Rutgers, he did audition for a chair, because when you join an orchestra, they don't just seat you. You audition for a chair, for a spot in the orchestra. And when he auditioned for the undergraduate orchestra, he actually was accepted into the graduate school orchestra as a freshman. Only 2 freshmen were accepted into the graduate school orchestra, and he was one of them. So I think that speaks to his abilities and talents and gifts. So he was very gifted.
Do you have performances that you're able to listen to or watch?
I do have some, but I'm not really able to watch them personally.
Okay. I can totally understand. How did music enter his world?
It was sort of a natural for him, but he, his next older brother, his middle brother, took a music course one summer in percussion, not violin, but in percussion, to switch instruments. And there was a recital at the end, and he saw younger students. He was in he was just finishing first grade, going into second grade in that summer. And he saw even 4-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds playing Suzuki violin. It's a method of learning how to play violin. And he saw them and he said, I want to do that. I can do that. That's what I want to do. And he didn't get to, I couldn't sign him up in September because the class was full, but he persevered. And the next summer, he still wanted to do it. And that's when he started. So he was actually an old man in the class. He, and there was one other, someone his age, they were going into 3rd grade and they were the oldest in the class. They were the grandparents in the class, so to speak. So, yeah.
Incredible that he started so young. I love that. That's why he was so good and got into the graduate orchestra. So a week from today, Tuesday, October 11th, is National Coming Out Day. And I know Tyler came out to you shortly before he started going to Rutgers. What do you recall about him sharing that part of his life with you?
Yeah, that was a night I will always remember. Don't like to, but I do. He it was late into the night, and it was just 2 days before leaving for Rutgers. And he came up from the basement from watching sitcoms. I think he liked to watch Friends late at night, like at 11 o'clock. And The Nanny was on at that time, and a couple of those other kinds of sitcoms then. And he came up and he was actually in tears and very upset. And I was in tears, not knowing even what he was going to tell me. But unfortunately, I was shocked when he told me, which is really interesting. I suppose I can probably relate to parents who are surprised, and I can also relate to parents who are very much aware and waiting for their child to come out, because Tyler is my youngest of 3 sons, but I also have an older son, and he also is gay. And I was waiting for James to come out, and even processing that with Tyler in the summer. So I'm not so sure why I was so shocked when Tyler came out, but I was surprised. And I wasn't prepared in my thoughts.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. You expected your other son, as you said, and maybe just, I don't know that parents, all of us, even us who are gay, always will expect that there might be another sibling in the family.
Oftentimes there is.
I know.
Oftentimes
at those ages, I don't, and, I think we all are learning that more and more now that people are open with those conversations. But at that time, and even when I grew up, like I don't know that parents would expect that, because there weren't conversations, there weren't things on television that enlightened us to this.
Right. In 2010, it was not a conversation, at least not in the circles I traveled in. And of course, some of those circles were extremely conservative religious circles. So obviously that wouldn't be talked about. But even with parents of friends of my children. It wasn't really talked about. And certainly it wasn't on TV like it is today, which is wonderful, or in books, which is even better, which is why I can't wrap my head around why people would want books banned. And not only books that talk about LGBTQ community or inclusion, but other books that have great messages, but they're being banned as well, which is really sad. Very, very sad.
Absolutely. We learn from all of this. I know you feel so differently today. If there's somebody watching, what would your message be today to other parents on the receiving end of that news?
Well, for someone who was in my position who knew, I would say go get more research. Like I knew my one son, why didn't I pursue getting more information? I did have leeway. I did have time and I didn't pursue it. It's busy in my day-to-day life, but certainly I would be telling the parents that or I would love to tell parents, your child is who your child is, who you loved yesterday and who you still love today after they've come out to you, and to make sure you show them that love. I certainly told Tyler I loved him, but he came to me crying, so I left crying and he was happy afterwards. It was like he gave his tears to me at that point, and I didn't even understand why. That I would also share with youth to give your parents a little bit of time, and I've heard this from younger people, part of the LGBTQ community too, that they've realized they had time to learn who they were and to come to peace with who they were. Some people easier than others, especially within religious dogma communities. I've heard some people struggle greatly to accept who they are. So you've had time to accept yourself. Give your parents a minute too, because you hear all these wonderful stories from the minute that you've been told that the response of a parent is wonderful. And there certainly are, but for every one of those stories, I think there's the opposite of shock, or there's the opposite of not knowing what to say or how to react. So to react with a smile and a hug and a big kiss is my response. Not always able to happen, but that's the goal. And I think that happens more today than again in 2010 or earlier.
I completely agree. And just saying it is helpful to somebody, just so a parent or even the child hears you say that, knowing what you've experienced. I know I heard you in a recent interview that you talked about moving recently and finding some of Tyler's writings. What did you learn about, sort of his struggle, when you found those?
I learned that his struggle was deeper and more than just the couple of days that he spent at Rutgers University. I mean, certainly the issue that happened at Rutgers was a tipping point for him, but he definitely was struggling at moments, and he did document feelings of sadness, feelings of anger, feelings of despair. No, it wasn't overwhelming, as my therapist has been telling me. It's not like he wrote about it every day, because he didn't. It was just really a few entries, but in hindsight, looking back at those handful of entries, maybe 10 or 12 maybe entries, life must have been very sad for Tyler at those moments in time, and that is horrible and difficult to bear in hindsight, looking back on that. And I did write about it. So there's one, we have some letters of affirmation, because some of our anti-bullying work is in the space of faith communities, because as you said, our mission is to end online and offline bullying in schools, workplaces, and faith communities. And we feel that looking back in hindsight, Tyler heard messages, infrequent as they were, but he did hear messages from the pulpit. And he also, what I've learned afterwards, finding those papers, was he learned messages and heard messages in Sunday school or youth group as well that he attended, which I was not even aware of. So again, can't be everywhere, but again, why doesn't a mother know? That's the guilt a mother carries.
I, I
So
can't even imagine, what you feel when you find those and read that, and the difficulty in sort of hearing that pain.
yes, so as I said, we were working in faith communities, and a few years ago we asked for people to write letters. We called them letters of affirmation. And we were reaching out to leaders and ministers of the Southern Baptist Conference because they have a very unaccepting stance on LGBTQ inclusion, and love, and we wanted them to see the harm, the great harm that was being done. So we had some parents, some pastors, some gay pastors, some straight pastors, pastors who had changed their own personal theology. And also we had like a seminary student. We have some very well-known people that are very well known in this work, and some unknown people write letters. And I penned 3 letters as well. And the second letter includes some of those, a little bit about finding those pages in his journal.
Is that on the website?
Yep, it's on the tylerclementi.org under True Faith Doesn't Bully, under letters of affirmation. And then they're all listed there, because we not only wanted to send these letters to the pastors, we wanted to make them public, because we wanted to be a source of hope for a young person looking for hope, or maybe even a parent, because we had some parents, and maybe, who knows, maybe even a pastor that's looking for sources. So it's from all the different perspectives, and they're all up there on our website.
That's incredible. I love that, and I will go there to read those. I'm curious, because the work you do helps people in so many ways, and grieving is such a personal and difficult process. What might you share that might help somebody else going through a similar loss?
That's difficult to say, because I do think everyone grieves differently. I think, as you just mentioned, I know things that people said to me out of love, and I think they thought were helpful, sometimes was not very helpful. Just as you asked about whether I watch videos of Tyler or pictures. Initially, I actually took all the photos out of my living room and public and home. And I did it of not only Tyler, but my other children as well. It was like I just didn't want to see back into my past. It just brought up feelings of pain and loss. It was like, that was a good time. This is not a good time. I mean, I don't know. And I thought I was unique, because many people I knew grieved, put up like a mausoleum of pictures all around them. But I've found many others like myself who see the picture and just see the pain and can't get beyond that chasm to the good moments. And there were many, many good moments. We had it as a family. I had with Tyler individually. I'm sure that my other children had with him. But I just couldn't get past that. So, some of the things that I found helpful was journaling was super helpful, because I could get my pain and whatever I was feeling, which was different on any given day, from pain to anger to trying to forget and deny what was happening in a strange world. Like, this is a dream, I'm just going to wake up from this one day and I'm going to have my life back, but it doesn't happen that way. So that I found extremely helpful. And actually, I was someone who had a faith, but I didn't really know what my faith really was. I wasn't as deep in my faith. And for me, seeking God and prayer helped a lot. And now I feel much deeper in my faith, much further along in my journey, and know why I believe what I believe, and being grateful and having gratitude. Learned that through my spiritual journey. And I think having gratitude in your life is good, because no matter what, there's always something to be grateful for, even if it's just a cup of coffee when you need it, or, on a small scale. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be understanding and seeing and identifying, calling out things that you are grateful for.
I've started to try to incorporate that. Because I hear a lot of people talk about the gratitude. So I'm glad you said it, because I'm starting to, just feel that, I think. And I think it's a good thing to feel.
And it is a good place to be, and that's something I learned in those dark moments. And then now I do see that there is like a movement, like you said. So
yeah, that's what it feels like.
That or I could see, for me, like almost God at work, like with timing, like just when I needed something, and it wasn't maybe what I thought I needed, but as it was happening, I was like, oh, that's giving me some peace, or that is being very helpful to me right now. I used to call it God moments or God instances, but then I now call it serendipitous, because I know some people are a little opposed to the word God or the divine, because they don't necessarily embrace that philosophy of a divine person.
True. You really have been very open about the dark place that his death took you, and that you considered suicide yourself. Was journaling what pulled you out of it, and faith, or other things as well?
Some other people have asked me that. I'm not exactly sure what had pulled me out. I also had mental health counseling throughout. I was fortunate to have easy access to that. Someone was there that offered, and all I had to say was yes. And in those really dark early moments, just saying yes was enough, or hard enough, or all I could do.
Hearing you say that and putting that out there and saying, we have to get more people to say yes.
Yeah, it's just about saying yes. And I mean, my first sessions obviously were very slow and quiet. Because I couldn't think, I couldn't formate words, and I guess looking back, even not to those early moments, but because we didn't really go public with anything for a good year. I think our first interview was in December of 2011. But even I see that I don't see any like life in my picture or in my voice. It was like monotone and slow and disjointed, sort of, almost. So it's hard to see myself even a year or two after Tyler's death. So I don't really know the exact moment, because every day was a struggle for a while. The pain was very unbearable. But I do know something was well, what I do know is that I was uncertain. I always had doubts. Like, I couldn't even make up my mind about simple things. Like, we'd go out to lunch, say, and it was like, well, what should I eat on the menu? I just could not fathom that. So I knew that I had this uncertainty. So to maybe just take that last step was uncertain. Where one of the things with Tyler is he was a very determined person. He would make up his mind, and he would, do it. He decided like in middle school, he liked hermit crabs, or wanted a hermit crab. We were down the shore, and he just made sure he figured out how to do it, what he needed. He was just determined. And maybe my personality is that I'm not a determined person, or a decisive person. That's probably more the word decisive. But I don't know, maybe my faith, maybe journaling, maybe the prayers of others, maybe it just wasn't meant to be. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. And you've also talked about that you had many people to forgive before you even got to the roommate who started this all. Can you, like, who are you referencing when you say that?
Yes, I do say that. I was just talking about that yesterday at Mercer Community College. I first and foremost, I suppose I had to forgive Tyler for harming himself and for not reaching out to us or telling us what was happening. At somewhere along the path, and it's like waves. It's not all at first. I was angry that he did what he did, and why didn't he tell us? And then, of course, why didn't I know? Why didn't I know what was happening? Why didn't I listen harder? Why didn't I see some of the things that were happening or he was experiencing? He never appeared sad when he was at home prior to this. He always woke up with this big smile on his face, and very excited for the day. And I just was interpreting that as a means of, this is going to be a great day. This is who I am, and I'm upbeat. But, I learned that he learned to hide his sexual orientation from me. And maybe he was hiding his emotional status as well, from everyone, from the world, from the family. But when I internalize it, it's from me, to me. And why didn't I see that? So I had to forgive myself. Still working on that sometimes. So, but that's a process. And as a person of faith, and I was, I had to decide, do I abandon my faith, my
Mm-hmm.
my love for God or whatever, or do I find out how I can love my children in this? Because even after Tyler died, I still had my older son who was gay, and I couldn't let somebody harm him. So where do I go with this? There's a lot to hold here. So I had to forgive God too, because why did he let this happen to Tyler? Why was this extra burden placed on Tyler? And was he God placing this on James? So I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive Tyler. I think I had to forgive God in some sense. And then, of course, Darun comes in there somewhere. Low, very low on the totem pole.
I understood it. Understood. The year after, you and your husband created the foundation. What, I'm sure you had to be impacted by the impact Tyler's death had around the world. What was the driving force to create the foundation in 2011?
Yes, and that's like an iffy date too, because again, things were moving and yet they weren't moving. Is like being on a treadmill in fog.
It's not going anywhere.
Technically, Joe brought it to my attention that we incorporated in the fall of 2010, and I insisted no, but then he showed me the paperwork, and in fact we did, because I didn't think anything was. But I mean, the media was out there. We did have a huge media attention. I don't think I was seeing it at the time. Joe was probably more aware of it. And Joe and James and Brian, my other two sons, were probably more bothered by it because they were leaving the house through hordes of people. I mean, you don't get that media attention without having an encampment around your house. But I just stopped functioning, and I just was home, and people were coming to us. Our home was filled with people who were loving and supporting on us. So I wasn't like alone, but I wasn't seeing that media, like the shades were pulled eventually because they were just zooming in on our living room, and that was not pleasing to anyone, I suppose. But Joe came to me with the idea, why don't we form a foundation? And actually, at the time, I was a very Debbie Downer. I was like, no, what could we possibly make the foundation about? I just couldn't see beyond my grief, beyond my loss. I didn't see the issues, and a lot of the things were coming to us after and in piecemeals too. But we did start the process to start a foundation without knowing purpose, because of the media attention. Finally, in the following year, for his anniversary, for the anniversary of his death, we were like, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to do something or not? Although it was still not functioning very well. But we did start a website, a very basic website. And in like in November, we decided we would do some interviews, finally, if people were interested still a year later, a year and 3 months later. And we started our first interviews, did a few interviews in December. We still did not have anything to offer anyone as far as what our mission was. And we fortunately, in February of 2012, or because of the interviews, we had someone reach out to us and invite us to the HRC dinner in New York City, which is in February of 2012. And the person was persistent because we weren't looking at our website. We kind of put it up and kind of left it, but reached out through my cousin, who was one of the third co-founders. And I read it and I'm like, yeah, we should probably go to this. Joe, take care of it, my ex-husband. And so we went to the HRC dinner and we became good friends with someone who invited us. And that person helped us to find a part-time executive director in June of 2012. And thanks to Paul Baskin, who did help us get the part-time executive director, which was Stephen Guy. We then got started, and Stephen Guy, brought together some major leaders in the field of suicide prevention, LGBTQ issues, anti-bullying issues, and we had what we called a kitchen table. And everyone talked about what they did and where they saw holes in the system and where they thought we could, where we would be best and where we wanted to be. Then Joe and I and Stephen discussed where we should go. And we saw in 2012, this is a huge hole in the anti-bullying movement. Now there's a lot of organizations talking about it, but we did not see many people talking about it at that point. We thought that Equality, HRC, had a big handle on LGBTQ issues, GLAAD, GLSEN, PFLAG. So we didn't think we'd have that much to add in there, that it was well covered. And I did not like that S word at first. I did not like to say suicide. I didn't want to talk about suicide. So I really shied away from it, but we have the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention. There's JED Foundation. There were many big organizations working in suicide prevention, Trevor Project. So I was glad not to deal with that. We thought we could be further upstream and prevent those issues by dealing with bullying. And I really didn't think we'd be 12 years later or 10 years later from 2012 still needing LGBTQ issues and rights. I thought this will be old news by 2022. It's so not.
We might need it more. Sadly, we might need it more. And I mean, it's the perfect mission, really, because of Tyler being targeted. And I've heard you describe the circumstances around that bullying, that he was targeted by his freshman year roommate for his sexual orientation. Is targeting usually is that we're all bullied. I mean, I've been, in school, but do we see it as most kids are targeted?
Well, I think when I was learning about bullying, I was learning that there was somebody called the bully and somebody called the victim. And I didn't like those two terms because, if you label someone a bully, then it's harder to change their behavior. And I'm all about changing behavior. I don't think people are born evil or intend to be evil. I think they learn it. And I think they also have maybe a little bit of inbred selfishness, and they want to be more um, socially connected or move up that social ladder or something to that effect. But I don't think people truly are evil. And I don't want to label someone something, because when you label something, then you are harder to change your behavior. As well as the fact that oftentimes I've learned that someone who is targeted sometimes then becomes the aggressor because they don't want to be the target anymore, And
They flip the table, right? They flip the table.
Yeah, if you're stronger, then you're not going to be abused or harassed or humiliated. And as what also with the term victim, it takes away your power, and you're not powerless. You just happen to be targeted by their bullying behavior, and you're targeted by their behavior. So that's my rationalization to talk about people with those terms, talking about their behavior, that they're targeted by somebody. It's not that they're powerless. They might not like it, and it might leave lasting scars, but it is something that you can change, and you need to talk about it. You need to report it. And also I learned learning about bullying is that there's oftentimes a third component to that scenario. It's not just the aggressor or the target. There's oftentimes bystanders. And that's one of our key messages. Our first and foremost and closest to my heart is turning those passive bystanders into active upstanders. Because we saw there were lots of people seeing from the earliest moments when we were learning about what happened to Tyler at Rutgers. We saw that there were lots of people that saw what was happening, and no one to our knowledge reported it. And no one to our knowledge reached out to Tyler, and no one seemed to stop it. So I'm really passionate about turning those passive bystanders into active upstanders, but safely, and that's why we, especially with youth, give them multiple ways of how they can become upstanders, either by intervening safely, by either interrupting the situation if they feel comfortable, or if they know the people that are present, or even just walking the targeted person away. Take them to the library, take them to the nurse, escort them to the this guidance counselor or someone safe. Mm-hmm. And because that's the second step, is if you can't interrupt safely, or if it doesn't change the behavior, report the behavior, because it's not tattling on someone if you're trying to keep someone safe. I know a lot of people would be concerned about outing someone, but there are trusted adults in almost every school, and you need to find them and know who they are. And if you see a situation, especially if the person being targeted it's because they're gay, but there's many other reasons. Sometimes it's body shaming, sometimes it's because of religion, sometimes it's because of being too smart or not being smart enough. There's many reasons youth are bullied, but being part of the LGBTQ community is one of the number one reasons, almost on every research I've seen. It is part of that. So there's 3 steps: interrupting, reporting, and then the third step, which I think would have had a huge impact in Tyler, is someone to reach out to the person being targeted. Make sure they know that they're not alone. Make sure they know who their resources are. And like I said, maybe even walk with them to the school nurse or to the teacher, or, go with them, especially if it's a youth. But, we can all be upstanders, even because bullying doesn't magically disappear when someone turns 18. It continues on into life unless we can identify the behavior. So, do it in the workplace as well as an adult. Get yourself out to the voting polls and vote. That's the means of being an upstander, I think, because you have to make sure that people are in power in politics that will protect yourself and your loved ones, you know.
And they themselves are not a bully.
Right.
Because currently we have a lot of bullies in politics.
We do, and it's not even. I think it reached a really high peak recently, but you know, even since I was young, people have you know, are too busy putting other people down to tell you what they truly believe, you know, and what they're going to do for you. But that's the kind of political leaders I want. I want someone who's going to say, I'm going to make sure that women have the right over their body. I want a leader that's going to say for sure that they're going to protect my son and his husband, and that they're going to have rights to not only marry, but also to adopt if they so want to, and to health care and to housing. I want to make sure that those leaders do, you know, will do those things. So get out there and make sure that they're not banning the books that students read. Because for me, as part of an anti-bullying organization, the best way to make people aware of what's happening is to read stories, you know, and to show people that people are people, and we all want to belong, and we all want to feel loved, and we all want to have community. And if we all want that, it's, you know, we have these nice yellow bracelets, and they're yellow for the golden rule. Do to others as you'd have them do to you. Something Tyler didn't receive, but we want everyone else to receive it. So get out and vote.
I love that. Well, I think of, you know, I'm not only gay, I am the son of 2 Holocaust survivors, you know, and, you know, people want to ban books about LGBTQ. People want to ban books about Holocaust and racism. It's ridiculous. I mean, we learn from the past, and you know, there's so many kids who don't know about the Holocaust or don't know about 9/11, or you know, it's like, yeah. I mean, it's disturbing that that's the mission.
Or the 60s and the racial riots and the racial injustices that happened and still happen, but it was so obvious
during the George Floyd.
Yeah.
Tell us, which you just described, but I know the foundation does a lot during this month. October is National Bullying Prevention Month. You know, if you could just elaborate a little more on the foundation's work during this particular month.
So we do try to get our messaging out, about being an upstander, and we actually also enlarged our programming about upstanders by creating what we call a Day One initiative, and that's toolkits that we that can be read in various communities. One is schools, and we have that broken down into ages. Also for sports teams, we also have it for workplaces, and we also have it for 2 religious groups right now, for Christian and Judaism. And there's 2 for Judaism. There's an A and a B because of different wording of the divine. Some wanted it one way, some wanted it another way. Our board chair wanted it one way, and some of the rabbis we talked with wanted it another way. So we did 2. You know? So we really want to create Day One schools and workplaces, schools. And what Day One is a research-based initiative where a leader in an organization or a community stands up on the very first day and declares that this is a safe space, and that no one will be targeted or humiliated here because of what makes them different, whether it's their religion, their race, their sexual orientation, their gender, their body shape, and calling out all the differences. Because just saying be kind doesn't often, you know, cover it. You know, what does that mean? I'm being kind, but I just won't let this person join me because they're too thin or they're too heavy, right? But, you know, by calling out all the differences, that's what's really important. And getting acknowledgement back from the group saying, yes, we're going to agree to this, because having people hear it and verbally accept it helps to change the mindset. It's not a magic wand. Obviously, it needs to be repeated, and it needs to have the behavior called out. So like if someone is using homophobic words or racial slurs, calling it out and saying, remember on the first day we said we're not going to use those words in this community. Everyone is welcome here. I just think it would have had a huge impact on Tyler, feeling welcomed and included, because after all, who doesn't want to feel that way? But it also sets boundaries clearly. So I think it would have had an impact on the roommates, saying, oh yeah, we're not allowed to set up cameras. That's not right. It's not fun. It's not right to make fun of someone because of their sexual orientation. And in my heart, I do believe that he did what he did because of Tyler's sexual orientation. So we're very busy promoting that. As you said, we also are doing our gala on October 20th. Thank you. So we are honoring George Takei. He'll be in the room. So if you're a Trekkie fan, anybody out there, please come. We're also honoring Warner Brothers Discovery, and they'll be present to receive their award. Dennis Williams is the recipient who will receive it for them. And we also we'll have some entertainment. We'll have some silent auction items. It's an open bar. It's a fun night for all. Come join us.
What year is this for the gala?
Well, we did our first gala in 2012, but then 2019 was the last one we met in person. We did something
so this is the first one back.
Yes, this is the first one back since 2019. We did do some things online in 2020. We tried to do a panel discussion with a couple of the cast members from Queer as Folk, because one of the cast members, Scott Lowell, is on our board, and he'll be in the room too if you're a Queer as Folk fan. And he's helping us greatly. But it's not the same as a in-person event. So this is the first one back. And I mean, it was great, and they helped us greatly, and we're very thankful for them. But this will be fun in person. So I hope to see lots of our New York City and New Jersey friends. We do get some people that have followed us and come from California or North Carolina sometimes. So that I don't know if they'll do that since the COVID break, but it should be good.
Well, like I said, I mean, Tyler's death impacted people around the globe for sure. What are you most, looking now back at 10 years of the foundation, basically, what are you most proud of?
I really like our Upstander pledge, and I'm really glad that we're getting that out. We reached 1 million Upstanders in 2020, I believe, somewhere in the summer of 2020. We reached 1 million people with that, with our pledge, and I think that's really great. I'm really happy with our work. We also have a youth ambassador program. And so we reach high school age. We've been doing it for high school age for the last 5 or 6 years. And it's always been on Zoom because we've always had applications from all over the country. And it was always done with a monthly meeting, a group meeting, and then individuals, meetings with our coordinator right now. But we're actually going to be moving it into middle school age grades as well this coming January. Our year goes January to January for that program. And we're also hoping to move it into colleges too, because some of the youth ambassadors that we've had want to continue doing, capstone projects and working in the college environments that they've moved into. So we're excited about moving forward with that. And I think
awesome that they want to continue the work.
Yeah.
I love that. And I wanted to say the Upstander Gala link is up on the website for YouTube, so folks can find it there as well.
Oh, perfect.
So they can absolutely. I saw, a beautiful message on your website about true faith doesn't bully. Tell me about that message.
I'm not sure I know which one you're talking about.
It was a card that says basically that you're not being bullied by your faith. True faith
does not bully, right?
Does not bully.
Right. If you have true true faith. It's not a form of bullying, but yet, unfortunately, many organized religions do bully, because bullying is unwanted aggressive power where there's a power imbalance. And certainly someone standing up in the front of the room or behind a pulpit spewing words that somebody is broken or less than or somehow separated from God is a form of bullying. We know so much more now in the, what are we in, the 23rd, 22nd century, whatever century we're in.
We do know a lot
century.
more.
We know so much more than we did in the first century. And we know more. There's been medical research and psychological research about the impacts of homophobia, and we have to stop preaching that from the pulpit. And certainly someone in their 20s or 30s or 40s, a professional paid person speaking negatively and is extremely harmful to the youth sitting in the pews, and that's a form of bullying, in my opinion. Using that power imbalance with unwanted aggressive words. Words hurt. Words have impact, and we have to know that, and we have to open our eyes. This is nothing new. For God, He's not shocked by the research that we have, and we're not making it up. We know. Trevor has done some great research projects. HRC, also the Family Acceptance Project. Caitlin Ryan has wonderful research showing that a family that it loves and supports their youth are much less likely than their straight peers to die by suicide or have suicidal ideations, not die. So let's open up our eyes and use what knowledge we have and use it to love, because I think all religions, if I'm not mistaken, are based on love. So let's love, and love doesn't hurt somebody. Love doesn't harm someone.
Love makes the world go round.
Yeah, right.
It really does. My last question, I know you get to work with James at the foundation. What's that
like? Times, yes.
What's that like for you?
It's interesting. Do you know James, by the way?
No. I met, that's how I was introduced to you, but no, I saw James out. But no, I mean, just, having the opportunity to work with your son.
I do. And I think that was wonderful. And we worked much more closely together for the foundation early on as I got started. And that was extremely helpful for me, for my healing. And it was, he knew me like, okay, so you're really bad at names. So I'll whisper the name of this person to you because he has a really good memory. So it was really nice to have that. He unfortunately does not really work full time with us any longer. He is a part-time employee, and he provides us mental health resources and a blog monthly. So mental health content, because he went back to school to teachers college and became a mental health therapist. So he is in private practice in Manhattan, and he does that as his full-time job, and he just supplements and helps us. And I'm wonderful and thankful for what he does offer us. Yeah. And I'm really happy as a mom that he's very happy and content with what he's doing and very good at it, I think.
And helping others.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm sure this tragedy has helped, now he's putting that to a good, positive, moving it forward.
It's all about turning something terrible into something good and making sure no one else, suffers that same pain and shame. And then James can help people process whatever they're going through and come out with tools and equip them to live really happy, wonderful lives. I hope it all works for everyone.
Absolutely. Jane, thank you really for spending this time with me. Thank you for, being so open and honest, because I do think it's, helping a lot of other people.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And like I said, go to tylerclementi.org and come to our gala. I look forward to seeing.
And take the Upstander Pledge.
Yes, and take the Upstander Pledge. Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye, Jane. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody, for watching today. Tyler Clementi's death changed the way we look at bullying. Don't be a bystander. Please visit the tylerclementi.org website. Take the Upstander Pledge today. And if you're in New York City and want to attend the Legacy celebration, visit the website to purchase tickets or consider making a donation to the foundation. As I leave you today, remember, we all have choices to make in life. Speak up and do the hard thing, and let's all fight to stop hate in all its forms. I truly believe conversations like this can change the world around us. Stay tuned for the next conversation on October 26th.